Hello friends, welcome to Selenium tutorials. This is video 1 and in this video I'll talk about uh, test automation using Selenium and introduction to Selenium IDE, Selenium WebDriver, Selenium Grid. So this is my first video under Selenium tutorials. Before this I have made videos on Tosca test suite, which is a test automation tool where no programming language is needed. So for those videos you can refer my blog. So this is my blog, testautomator.in. On my blog you can find Tosca tutorials over here, and you can find all the videos one by one, right? You can find the videos on YouTube as well. On YouTube you can search with my name, Prakash Narkede, and yeah, so the very first one you can find and here you can find the videos. uh, so all these are the Tosca test suite videos. Under playlist you can find a playlist. So this is Tosca test suite tutorials, right? So starting from video 1, starting from introduction to continuous integration. So I have made most of the videos whichever possible by using this Tosca trial version, right? So now coming to Selenium. So as I said, this is my first video on Selenium tutorial. You can find many other videos on Selenium, but I'm making these videos so that it can help someone. So starting with Selenium. So Selenium is a test automation tool. Not a tool, we cannot say it is a tool. It is a set of jar files, right? So Selenium is not a tool. Selenium is a set of jar files. We need to add those jar files into a integrated development environment, that is any IDE like Eclipse IDE or IntelliJ or NetBeans, right? We can use any IDE for the programming, and for that programming we need a set of jars which are provided by Selenium, right? So I'll just show you the jar files. What you can do is you can go to Selenium HQ and you can find the jar, you can get the jar files from here, right? So you can get the jar files from here. So WebDriver, Selenium WebDriver jars, you can download it from here. So the jar file looks like okay, so this is, I have Selenium 2.5 3.1 version of Selenium, in which we have various jars. So this Selenium Java, this is a main jar file, and the supporting jar files are this much, right? So the whole this total jar files is nothing but the combination of jar files is nothing but a Selenium, right? So we need to add the jar files into this any IDE. So this is Eclipse IDE, so I will add the jar files in Eclipse IDE, and I will start my programming of automation on in this Eclipse IDE, right? Okay, so okay, now why and when to automate, right? So we need to automate a frequent regression testing. Suppose your application in which there are frequent changes, there are frequent changes, like there are frequent changes in the small area where you need to perform the regression. After that small change you need to perform regression on the whole application. So that is bit tedious and time consuming, right? So for those kind of scenario we can use automation. Then there are some repetitive test cases which need to be executed. Suppose there is something that there are a set of test cases which you need to execute daily in order to make sure that okay, your environment is working on all and all, right? So for such a scenarios you want to execute the set of repetitive test case again and again. So we can automate those test cases. We can automate user acceptance test cases before your application releases to production. Then why to automate? Because it gives the faster feedback to developer, right? So since it is reducing the manual effort the work will be performed faster, and it will give the faster feedback to the developers. Now, as it is automation, it takes a very less time to execute. For development, definitely it will take a time, but for execution it will take very less time as compared to manual testing what we do in a suppose regression testing, right? So it will definitely reduce your human efforts. And let us say there is something like you have developed your application in development environment, you have tested your application in development environment. Now your application needs to be promoted in system testing environment, or system integration testing environment, or it can be user acceptance testing environment or production environment. So every time you need to run the same test cases again and again on multiple environments, so test the same applications on multiple environment. So what we can do is we can create a test, we can create a test automated suite for the particular set of test cases, and we can run the same set of test case over all the environments. So it will definitely reduce a human effort, it will reduce a time and cost as well. So this is why we should automate our test case. And which test case we should automate? The regression test cases, or the test cases which you are repeating again and again. So what are the Selenium features? So before that, let me come to Selenium components. So Selenium, as I said, Selenium is a suite of jar, is a suite of jar files. It is not a tool, it is a set of jar files or a suite of jar files, right? So in Selenium, and Selenium has a four components: Selenium IDE, that is Selenium Integrated Development Environment, Selenium WebDriver, Selenium RC, Selenium Grid. So these are the four components of Selenium. Out of these four, this Selenium IDE is not used, or may be used very in rare case, and this Selenium RC is not used at all nowadays. So mainly used components of the Selenium are Selenium WebDriver and Selenium Grid, right? So now what is Selenium IDE? Selenium, you can find here, Selenium IDE is a Firefox plugin, and which provides you the recording and playback feature, right? It provides you the playback feature. So I have the Selenium IDE installed, so I'll just show you. I think I should have. Okay, I don't have Selenium IDE installed, but I'll show you in some time later. So Selenium IDE is a Firefox plugin, and it provides you the mechanism of record and playback. So you cannot do like a programming in Selenium IDE. It is just a record and playback feature which is in a Firefox plugin. So it supports Firefox only. Selenium RC is used to execute a script written in any programming language, but this is not used nowadays because the successor of this Selenium RC is Selenium WebDriver. So Selenium and Selenium WebDriver, as I said, Selenium IDE, for Selenium IDE there are no jar files. Selenium IDE is just a Firefox plugin, whereas Selenium WebDriver, Selenium RC, do not concentrate on this, this is not used. Selenium WebDriver is a set of jar files, and it is used to execute a test script in any programming language directly communicating to browser. Selenium RC has a drawback, that it was communicating to server from browser, but Selenium WebDriver has neglected that drawback, so we are using Selenium WebDriver instead of RC nowadays. So, and Selenium Grid, Selenium Grid is used to perform a cross browser testing on a multiple environments. So yeah, we'll talk about this one by one. So Selenium IDE, as I said, Selenium IDE is a Firefox plugin, and since it is a Firefox plugin, it can be used only on the Firefox browser. It cannot be installed or used along with this Chrome or IE. So it has a record and playback feature. Since Since Selenium IDE doesn't have any IDE, it does not provide you the way to use conditional statement. So we cannot do a programming in Selenium IDE. So we'll talk about the Selenium IDE in one of the video. So let's come to Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver is, as I said, it is a set of jar files. I have shown you the jar file. So this is a Selenium 2.5.3. This means this is a Selenium WebDriver. So this is what Selenium WebDriver is, and it is a set of jar files. So Selenium WebDriver is designed to provide a simpler API in addition to addressing some limitations which were there in Selenium RC, as we discussed earlier. Selenium Selenium WebDriver supports dynamic web pages betterly than Selenium RC. What was the drawback in Selenium RC? And it has been overcome by Selenium WebDriver. It makes the direct calls to the browser using each browser's native support to automation. There is no server requirement for this Selenium WebDriver. So Selenium WebDriver does not need any main method, so it can be used along with your any unit testing frameworks like JUnit or TestNG. So this is what Selenium WebDriver is. And coming to Selenium Grid, now why we need Selenium Grid? Let me take you to one of the scenarios why we need Selenium Grid. Now let us consider you have a test cases suite. So you have a test cases suite and you want to execute this particular set of test cases. Let us say I have some application, and suppose this is my Gmail application. So this is my suppose Gmail application, and this Gmail application has a set of test cases which we need to execute, right? So now what as a tester, what one should test? Tester should test if your test cases are executable on Windows machine, you need to check, you want to check on Firefox browser, you want to check it on Chrome browser, you want to check on Safari browser, you want to check on IE browser, right? So you want to check on Mac OS as well. You want to check it on Mac OS again on Firefox IE. You want to check it on a Linux machine, and on Linux you want to check it on Firefox and Chrome. So let us say that this is my requirement. I have a set of test cases and I want to execute this set of test case on Windows OS, on Firefox, Chrome, Safari and IE, on Mac OS on Firefox and IE, and on Linux machine on Firefox and Chrome browser. Now what should you do? Should you go and execute your each test case or each suite in all the machines on all the browsers? No. So this is where your Selenium Grid comes into the picture, right? So what Selenium Grid helps you, it helps you to test the test cases in parallel with simultaneous executions on different remote machines. So this different remote machine is nothing but your Windows machine, Mac machine, Linux machine. So these are your different machines. So Selenium Grid helps you to achieve parallel execution. So it allows you to run your test cases in distributed test execution environment that is on different machines. So ultimately what it will do, you are running all your test cases simultaneously. Your test cases will be on some machine, and these machines will be a remote machine. So your this suit will be executed on this machine, on this browser, on this machine and this browser, this machine and this browser, and this will be simultaneous. So since it is simultaneously, it will reduce your execution time, right? So let us say if you want to run this suit for 9 times, 4 times here, 2 times here, and 3 times here, then let us say if it takes 1 hour, and if you're running it on 9 machine, then it will take you 9 hours to run one by one. But since Chrome Grid supports to run test cases in parallel, you may finish it in 1 hour as well. The another advantage of Selenium Grid is it supports multiple browser versions, right? So this is another advantage of Selenium Grid. So this is about Selenium IDE, which is a Firefox plugin, Selenium WebDriver, which is a main component and which is the main thing which we are using in Selenium nowadays. Selenium Grid is used to execute your test cases in parallel. So the four components of Selenium are Selenium IDE, WebDriver, remote control, that is Selenium RC, and Selenium Grid, right? And now what are the advantage of Seleniums? So Selenium means you can consider a full suite of Selenium, that is Selenium IDE, WebDriver, Grid, and Selenium RC. Though Selenium RC we are not using, but that is in Selenium package, right? So what are the features of Selenium? The biggest advantage of using Selenium is it is a open source. Selenium is a open source product. The competitive tools like QTP or RFT or Tosca all are paid tool, so you need a license for that, but Selenium is a free tool. Then they have inbuilt reporting mechanism. We'll talk about this in our coming videos. It supports cross browser testing, so we can run Selenium test cases on any browser. It supports several languages like Java, C hash, PHP, Python, right? So it supports all these languages, so you can do programming in any language. Selenium has its own commands, but along with the Selenium commands, you should know any of the programming language which can drive the Selenium commands. So most common is Java. Along with Java, you may use alternative to Java as a C hash, PHP, or Python. It has something called an assertion, which helps you to verify your test cases, right? So we'll talk about this assertion later. So assertion is used to test your expected result, if your expected is equal to actual, something like that, right? And as we saw, Grid, which helps us to test our test cases on multiple environments. And the one more thing nowadays is DevOps. So DevOps is nothing but development and operations, so this is a separate chapter, so you can find more about DevOps on my blog here. Here you can find it. So Selenium do support DevOps, so which will help to do our execution again very faster in a continuous life cycle. So yeah, so I think that's it I have for this Selenium tutorial. Selenium tutorial includes Selenium IDE, Selenium WebDriver, Selenium Grid, and Selenium RC. Out of that, Selenium IDE and Selenium RC are not used, and the Selenium WebDriver and Selenium Grids are used very frequently, right? So in this tutorial series, you can expect me to come with various topics of this Selenium in my next videos, and you can find the Selenium tutorials over here on my blog testautomator.in Selenium tutorials. So whatever I just explained you can find it over here. Selenium IDE, so Selenium RC, Selenium WebDriver, and Selenium Grid, advantages and disadvantages of each. Okay, coming to disadvantages, I think I forgot about disadvantages. Selenium IDE has a disadvantage that it supports only record and playback feature. It doesn't support you to code something. That is one disadvantage of Selenium IDE. Again, Selenium IDE supports only Mozilla Firefox. That is another disadvantage, right? So these are the drawbacks of Selenium IDE. Anyway, Selenium IDE is not used much, and okay, the most widely used is Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver has few disadvantages, that it supports only web-based application. You cannot automate desktop application or your mainframe application or your SAP application using this Selenium WebDriver. Selenium WebDriver supports only uh, web-based applications. Apart from the Selenium, if you go to QTP or Tosca, they do support desktop applications as well, but Selenium supports only web-based application. As I said, Selenium is open source software, so there may not be reliable technical supports from anybody. It is a open source, right? You cannot expect a help from anyone. You need to explore yourself. Though you can find lot of documentation about the Selenium on the net, on the internet, but there is no specific technical support team for Selenium. If you go to Tosca or QTP, they have a separate team to support. You can reach out to them and get your query resolved. Deploying Selenium tool is difficult than UFT, that is QTP. So Selenium is open source, so while performing a test as automation, you need to integrate your Selenium test script with various things, like you need to use your build tool, you need to use a continuous integration tool, you need to use a code repository, like you need to use a various things. So you need to integrate all the things, right? But if you go to other tools like QTP or Tosca, they have everything inbuilt, right? So that is another disadvantage of but though Selenium has these disadvantages, Selenium is most widely used rather than this QTP and Tosca nowadays, because it is a open source and it supports any OS, any browser. So yeah, that's it I have for this today's video, that is test automation using Selenium. In my next video I'll come up with something more. Keep watching my blog testautomated.in. Thanks.